Hello, my name is Sahil Malik. I'm a trainer and consultant and I love Angular. I deliver trainings on Angular regularly and you can find my email address right here. Here's another video making yet another Angular concept easy and simple to understand. As always, I look forward to your feedback. Thank you for watching. Next, let's talk about another interesting topic in Angular called components. Now, your typical application in Angular is going to be multiple modules, and those multiple modules will have many components, many services, etc. The root module could have one component, could have more than one component, but one thing remains common is that you'll have multiple components, and those components need to load each other, and they also need to nest amongst each other. They need to communicate with each other and all of that. So let's get started with this first example where we talk about the at input and components and how they nest together. And let's try and understand that. So I have the world's simplest Angular application created here. The real Angular code is inside this folder, but what goes outside, check out my other videos where I've talked about how to set up an Angular project. But basically, this application is really simple right now. It's got a main.ts bootstrapping. It's got an app module, which basically bootstraps the app component. And the app component right now is just showing my first Angular app. So this can be thought of as, starter Angular project. Okay. What I intend to do here is that I intend to create a to-do application. So it's just an application that has a bunch of to-dos and it's just going to list those to-dos out, nothing crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and create a file called business_objects.ts. And in this file, I am going to stick, a business object that represents an individual to-do, just two properties, ID and title, nothing special. And then I want to be able to, load to-dos in here. So what I'm going to do is that I intend to split this application into multiple components. So I'm going to go ahead and change this text here to, let's call it H1 to-dos, okay? And let's go to break tag. And then here, just like this app root is loading this component, I'm going to create a new HTML element called to-dos, and that will basically create a new to-do component here for me, and I'm just going to stick that here. Now, obviously, I need to create that component, so let's go to the new, let's create a new folder, and I'm going to create this, call this folder components, and inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new file called to-dos, plural, .component.ts. And in this file, I'm going to go ahead and place some code. Specifically, we are leveraging our to-dos component.html. I'm going to say new file, to-dos.component.html. We'll fill this file in a second. But what I'm doing here is that this thing has a property here called to-dos. And this property here is, I'm just filling this array up with a bunch of to-dos, nothing special. And this is not using relative paths. Is that great? No, but my template here is so simple that it doesn't understand relative paths. So I'm using this. In a real world example, you would have a more complex Webpack project, or just check out my videos on Angular CLI. And that takes care of allowing you to use relative paths, which is, by the way, a good practice. You try to do relative paths. Oh, by the way, also if using AOT, this can't be private. So I'm just following good practices here. So let's fix that. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and write up this to-dos component.html. Now this to-dos component.html gets a little interesting. So let's open this file. And what I intend to do here is that I want to render each one of these to-dos one by one. So I'll write code like that. And inside of here, let's create a div and how we want to render, this component. So let's do something interesting here, that I want to delegate the responsibility of rendering an individual to-do to its own component. So just like the app component.ts is able to load, see the selector, and that selector match. So similarly, the to-dos component could load another component called the to-do control, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. Now, obviously, I need to write this component, but one interesting thing you see here is that you see the usual Angular data binding syntax, which allows me to create a property called todo on which I can data bind this object. How is all this working? How did I write this to-do component, which I haven't written yet? So let's go ahead and write this to-do component.ts. And this to-do component.ts looks like that. So you see here that it is leveraging a template, which I haven't talked about yet, but it's very simple. It's importing the business object as usual, so it understands what the word to do means. But I have created a property here using this @input, import that I have here. And this is what is getting data bound over here, right? And that is how this thing is all stitched together. So the only thing left to do now is to create a new file called to-do component.html. And in this to-do component.html, I can just go ahead and data bind the to-do, and that finishes up my application. So once again, just a quick recap. App module is basically bootstrapping app component. App component is loading up to-dos, and this is how nested components work. So you see here that I have a bunch of to-dos in here, which I'm data binding like this in a ng4. And then it in turn is loading to-do control. It is passing in a data bound property using the @input tag, which looks like this. And that's how this application works. Let's go ahead and run this. And let's visit localhost 4200. And looks like I messed up something. Let's find out. Oh yeah, I got some errors. Never works first go. Let's see, console. Come on. Okay. So it says to-dos is not a known element. Now you will run into this error because I forgot to do one important thing. And that is that your module needs to know about all the components we care about in this module. So because it's statically linked, now later I'll talk about something called lazy loading where this is not a requirement. I need to inform the module that all of these components are stuff that I care about. Now I come back here and it's reloading. Let's see how that goes. And now it seems to work, right? And this is how the application is stitched together. And this is nested components or components, how they work generally speaking. And obviously there's a lot more to components than just this, but this gives you a taste test of what components look like. So the other things I'm going to talk about now, which is like output, view children, transclusion, etc. Stay tuned for the rest of my videos for that. Thanks for watching.